Item E, adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Conquest Contractors Incorporated for the Bel Air Storm Drainage Improvement Project in the amount of $76,700 and approving a construction budget in the amount of $88,200 and appropriate $85,000 from the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. Mr. Davis.
So, thank you. So, Mayor and Council, so this project, the Bel Air Storm Drainage Improvement Project, is addressing a localized standing water problem on 5th Avenue between Angus and its intersection with 7th Avenue. This project has been long anticipated, and it was developed in consultation with the neighborhood, really to address quality of life issues in their neighborhood. This project is really intended to address flooding or ponding water that occurs in this location because we really have a very flat slope in that area, and we've had some localized settlement, and there are some trees that have grown large and raised the curb and gutter. All of that leads to standing water in this neighborhood. So staff investigated a number of design options. We also really engaged the community. We had an open public forum to talk to the community about their interests and what they envision for the project, and partnered with the community really to finalize the design. The design is a little unique. It's a project or a material that we haven't used before in the city, and it's going to install a trench drain, and up on the screen is a photograph of what that would look like in the gutter, so that we are not going to be able to maintain a slope or build a slope in the gutter to move the water. We're building a slope underground. So the water would flow into this grate, and we have enough fall to the pipes to be able to slope the water so that we can move it away from the area and not have standing water. So that is the design proposal. For the project, the total project cost, and in the presentation I'm giving you a little more information or presenting it a little differently than it was in the staff report. But we talked about the total project cost being $130,000. We haven't assumed prior expenditures for design, consultant surveying, and miscellaneous expenses related to the project of nearly $36,000. The construction contract from the low bidder is $76,700. And the project, for the project, we're proposing a 15% construction contingency. That may be a little larger than we typically propose, but because the project is relatively small and there is a potential, it's a unit price contract, that we may run into some unforeseens once we start excavating, we wanted to provide $11,500 so that we can continue the project if we run into any unforeseens. We're also intending to need about $6,000 for staff effort to inspect and to administer the project. So that gets us to the total of $130,000. The project was previously budgeted at $45,000, and we're finding that the project is costing more than that. As I said, this is a new approach to solving this sort of a problem, so it's a new and novel material for San Bruno. We haven't used it before, and we really were off the mark as far as estimating. So that's the only explanation there. But what we find is we need another $85,000 to fully fund the project. We currently have that funding available in the Stormwater Enterprise, and we're proposing to appropriate additional funds to fully fund the project. The recommendation is to award the contract to Conquest in the amount of $76,700 and to appropriate additional funds of $85,000 to fully fund the project. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Questions?
I do. I'm sorry, Steve, could you go back to the picture of the proposed? Yes. Okay. It's hard to see on here. Is it the curb and then a cut into the ground and
Right.
then a grate over that?
So currently what we have is we have a concrete gutter and a raised curb. So what we're proposing to do is to install this grate and drain parallel to the curb.
Okay.
And so the purpose of that is as the water flows down the street and would otherwise be collected in the gutter, it'll be collected beneath the gutter and it will flow away because we can slope the subgrade to move the water away.
Okay, I see.
So this is a visual appearance of what it will look similar to. On Fifth Avenue, we have street trees. It's a little bit different, but just in the curb and gutter and the transition with the pavement, that's an image of what it would look like.
Okay, because at the point there,
Yes.
that's not where it's going to go, right? It's going to go up from the point and then across the street from there. Or is it going to go around that point?
So we're going to collect the water in this grate,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are 2 storm drain inlets. We're going to collect the water and flow it underground to those 2 storm drain inlets.
Okay.
And then it will continue in the underground pipes.
No, but I think
Okay.
she was asking, going back to the diagram of the map of the area of where 5th and 7th
Yes.
intersect. Can you show us, you see there, it's on 5th Avenue,
Right.
where the dotted line is.
So
Okay.
this is essentially the gutter line. And so the proposal is that there's an existing drain inlet at this point, and there's also a drain inlet at Angus and 5th Avenue.
Okay.
So we're going to put a high point in the center and flow half of the water north to Angus and half the water in this trench south to the existing inlet.
Okay.
And
Are they very difficult to clean? I can envision mud and debris in there and getting them clogged during the summer and...
so they do require maintenance, but we on an annual basis go through and prep the city for the storm season, and so we go through and clean out all the inlets. This will just be another location that we will, with our jetter, will be cleaning and preparing for the storm. It does have a grate, so leaves are not going into the drain.
Okay.
The leaves will stay in the gutter and will be swept up with the normal street sweeping.
Okay.
Regarding maintenance, we actually invest a huge amount of maintenance response in this location, vacuuming water, following up and doing things. So we believe overall the maintenance effort will be long-term less once we make this improvement and install these new grates.
Okay. Thank you. That's much clearer.
Steve, I just have a question on this grate. I mean, you're
Yes.
going to have tires, you're going to have cars and everything are just going to be pounding it, day in and day out. I mean, are they proven to withstand, that punishment?
Yes.
Or
Actu-
are you going to eventually have to be replacing grates because all of a sudden they're breaking and they're, being dislodged, and now you've got, a real problem because
Right.
now you have a slot in the gutter that's unprotected.
So as part of the investigation, we actually have talked to other cities, and in fact, Caltrans has begun to use this method in a number of their projects, and many other cities are using this. And the feedback we're receiving is that they're not, they don't become a hazard. They are weathering pretty well, and so based on our investigation.
Fingers crossed. Okay.
But actually, the grates are constructed very heavily, so they are a pretty substantial device that goes into the ground.
I think it's a very ingenious solution.
Yes.
Speaker? Up. Good.
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue, and for the residents, we appreciate your learning on this. I just had one question on the $36,000 or whatever that you are proposing to be included in the overall cost here. It seems to me, in coming to these meetings for a number of years, that when there's such a type of project proposed to the council, you have the lowest responsive bidder, you put your contingency on, and you look at that as being the total dollar amount that you're asking the city to fund. I don't remember hearing in the past that you're asking the city to include in the total cost of the budget work that you have done to get to that point, whether it's the research, whether it's the going out and getting the bids, doing the meetings with the neighborhoods and whatever. Am I reading something wrong? Is this a new step or a new dollar category that is now going to show up in future type presentations? Has it been buried somewhere in the past and we weren't aware? Or it just seems that low bid, 15%, here's what it's going to cost, here's what's budgeted. Can you address that somehow a little bit?
Mayor, council members, in this case, Will is not a departure from any past practice. Is the way how this is presented is maybe different than what how was before, based on the fact that our department needed additional budget appropriation for this specific project. Typically, the department, when the department comes to you for approval, presents the construction cost and the contingency together with the construction cost. In essence, asking for approval of the construction cost of the project without to present the overall total project cost at that time. That's the only difference how it was presented today, knowing that the department exceeded pretty substantially the initial budgeted overall project cost. And that's why the department came before you with additional explanation and clarification on the overall cost.
Through the chair, just so I understand, so what you're saying is the reason it is looking different this time, to speak over to myself, is only because it went over the cost and therefore you wanted it to be more detailed to show the rationale behind that.
Correct.
Okay, but going forward then again, you would convert back to the other system, which is it's not going to be identified as detailed if it's within a budgetary item. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm trying to say then why aren't we consistent then throughout the process one way or the other?
As part of our budget process, in the CIP, always the project is presented with the overall total project cost. But typically, when the department coming back for certain approval, asking for the approval of that piece, and does not necessarily come back with the discussion on the whole CIP cost.
If I could add to the director's comments, we were asked some questions by a member of the public and are attempting in this presentation to make abundantly clear how a small dollar value project has essentially tripled, I guess, compared to the budget in the total cost. And there was a substantial additional design effort, as the staff has already pointed out, attributable to this project, and that was part of the reason that we wanted to illuminate that for the City Council, because typically a project of this size would not require that extensive a level of design. So proportionately, design costs, contingency costs are at a higher level for this project and are significant drivers for the overall increase in the total project cost. Just to illuminate one small issue that Mr. Rico raised, and that is the, and again in our attempt to be fully forthcoming with respect to the cost increase on the project, and you've certainly heard us talk to you about projects exceeding their budget before, so when we do that, we attempt to address those issues that are particularly relevant to that project and to that specific conversation. As to Mr. Rakel's comment regarding the cost of public outreach, those costs are typically included in the overall project, in the project budget, as well as in the project expenditures. So there is, as the director said, no departure from the typical process here.
If I could, I think it would have been a lot more understandable if we knew what the $45,000 initial budget was based on. You know, because then you say, okay, we had planned, and I know some of the correspondence that there was just going to be some new curb and gutters, and possibly that was what was budgeted for, and then all of a sudden we realized that's not going to solve the problem. So now we have to go into this newfangled, you know, type of gutter and everything, which I understand is going to cost more, but.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, what you just said is exactly the answer. The original scope of the project was intended to be a fairly straightforward curb and gutter repair project.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Action from council?
I'd like to introduce the resolution.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wayne.
Aye.
Mayor Franzella.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.